My name is Madeline Hart, 40 years old, currently living in Boulder, Colorado. In the world of personal finance across the Rocky Mountain region, my name isn't unfamiliar. After nearly 2 decades of dedication, starting as a data analyst at a small investment firm in Denver, I built Hart Advisory Group, a financial advisory practice serving clients in the tech and healthcare sectors. Our annual revenue crossed the $1 million mark 3 years ago, but none of that means anything to my family. To them, I'm not a capable, successful daughter. I'm simply a walking wallet. I'm the middle child of three. My sister, Danielle, is always called the sunshine of the family, though she's currently working as a part-time teaching assistant at a community college while living with my mother. My younger brother, Lucas, was spoiled to the point that he still doesn't know how to wash his own t-shirt, and my parents, Charles and Susan Hart, treated my financial support for the family as a given, something I was expected to provide without thanks or acknowledgement. I used to believe that if I just worked hard and gave generously, love would naturally grow. But after 10 years of paying every bill, every loan, every non-repayable emergency support, I finally started to wake up. I still keep a detailed tracking sheet. As a finance professional, recording transactions is second nature. I didn't log them to get paid back. I logged them to remind myself when the draining began. Starting at age 30, I covered my parents' mortgage, $2,400 a month, for 2 full years because my dad was temporarily out of work due to health reasons. Every time my mom called, her voice carried a mix of anxiety and theatrical tension. "Madeline, if you can't help this month, I might have to sell my wedding ring just to keep the house." So I wired the money, every single time. No thank you, just the next request. Then came Lucas. First, $15,000 for an auto repair shop. 3 months later, it shut down because of unreliable business partners. I didn't complain. I wired another $9,500 for his digital content startup, which fizzled out after just 7 weeks. The third time, it was a $22,000 loan to open a coffee shop. The shop is still running, but I've never been invited to visit. Danielle always had reasons too: job loss, extra certifications, or needing a more reliable vehicle to commute. I paid $8,200 for her teaching certificate, $13,000 for a used SUV, and contributed $600 monthly until she got on her feet. It's been 7 years. On her feet remains a concept, not a reality. Her wedding last year, I was the sole financial backer. $18,000 for a farm-style ceremony near Longmont. No one in my family asked if I could afford it. My mom simply said, "You're the only one in this family with money. It's just expected." I used to stay quiet. I used to think that giving was how I proved my worth. But one evening I looked at my financial summary, and the number staring back at me knocked the breath from my chest. $294,720. That's how much I had spent for them, for this so-called family, over 10 years. And the most painful part wasn't the money. It was the realization that no one had ever once asked if I was okay. No one remembered my birthday. No one visited me when I had knee ligament surgery. No one ever asked if I was living a happy life. They only called about bills, about a car getting repossessed, about tuition due next week, or some unexpected emergency. But never once did I get a call saying they were proud of me, or even just, "Thank you." That night, staring at that spreadsheet, one truth became painfully clear. I had never truly been seen as a daughter. I had only ever been a breathing credit card. And they never thought I might have limits. I began to realize that favoritism in my family wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a system deliberately upheld. As a child, I used to think my parents were just tired, distracted, or had forgotten. But as I got older, it became clear. I was being deliberately overlooked, while what they did for Danielle and Lucas was always proudly displayed. When I was 8, my birthday was held in our backyard with a simple chocolate cake my mom bought on clearance at Safeway. 6 balloons were tied to the wooden fence, and a few neighbor kids came only because I personally invited them. My mom was busy doing dishes and my dad fell asleep on a lawn chair. No photos, no video, no birthday song. Just a single line from my mom. You're lucky you even got a party. Don't ask for too much. But just 3 months later, Danielle's birthday was celebrated at a fancy Italian restaurant on Pearl Street. 16 guests, a two-tier cake from a professional bakery, gifts spilling across the table. My dad stood up with a glass of wine and toasted proudly. No one deserves to be loved more than this girl. I was 10 at the time. I sat quietly at the table in a hand-me-down dress from Danielle, doing my best not to cry as my dad spoke those words, like I didn't even exist. As for Lucas, the youngest, he was what my mom called our final little miracle. Every time he got into trouble at school, fights, skipping class, my mom would visit the principal with a homemade cookie box to talk it out nicely. Once, when I got a B in science for choosing the wrong project topic, my parents called it a lack of focus and grounded me from TV for a week. When Lucas was suspended for 3 days for breaking into the gym office, my mom insisted, "He's just energetic, not malicious." My dad nodded. Boys need to be a little wild to grow up right. In 7th grade, I won first place in the district speech competition. On the podium, I looked out into the crowd. No one from my family came. Later, I found out my dad took Lucas to a state basketball game because those tickets were hard to get. My mom had taken Danielle dress shopping for prom 2 months in advance. I studied like a machine, always top of my class. I was invited to speak at my high school graduation, but my family just texted, "Good job, keep it up." The real heartbreak came when I received an offer from Northwestern University with a partial scholarship. I was thrilled and ran downstairs to show my mom. She was on her phone, didn't even look up. "That school's too far. Why don't you go to the University of Colorado like your sister? It's cheaper and closer to home." I told her I had partial financial aid. She just shrugged. "Then figure out the rest on your own. We can't cover everything." That same summer, my dad withdrew money from his savings to help Danielle buy a new Toyota Corolla so she could drive to teaching jobs safely. She hadn't even secured a job yet, but was still called the hope of this family. I never asked for anything. I took out student loans, worked part-time at the campus library. Once, I had only $17 in my account and had to choose between putting gas in my car or buying groceries. Meanwhile, Danielle was posting photos from a Santa Fe vacation my parents had paid for to help her unwind after her first teaching exam. Update on Lucas failed out of his freshman year in college, but my parents rented him an apartment in Greeley so he could have space to think. When I questioned why I had to pay for everything while they spoiled the other two, I was labeled difficult. My dad once said to me when I refused to send Lucas more money, "You've never needed anyone to take care of you, so why be bitter toward those who do?" No, I wasn't bitter. I just saw it clearly. In this family, love was distributed like a risky investment. The more trouble you caused, the more love you got. By the time I turned 35, had my own firm, and bought my first condo in downtown Boulder, I sent a photo of it to the family group chat. No one replied. Danielle finally asked, "Is the living room big enough for us to crash over the holidays?" That's when it hit me. In their eyes, everything I'd built wasn't a source of pride. It was a resource to be accessed. And the moment I stopped giving, they called it betrayal. I started to see one thing clearly. The favoritism I once thought only existed in my childhood had never really stopped. It just changed form, changed tone, and became more subtle as I entered adulthood. At 32, I bought my first home in North Boulder, a 2-bedroom place with a balcony facing the Flatirons and a kitchen I had always dreamed of. Natural light, granite counters, and light cherry wood cabinets. I shared a photo in our family group chat with the caption, "Finally got a place to call my own." My mom replied 2 days later with a single word. Lucas didn't read it, Danielle responded a week later with a clapping emoji and added, "Hope the living room's big enough for the kids and Blake to stay over during the holidays." Less than a month after that, my parents called, voices tense like a fire alarm. "Madeline, your dad's hours got cut. I'm buried in credit card debt. Maybe you could help out a little." I asked how much a little meant. My mom said it casually. "Around 3,200 a month, just for a few months, until your dad stabilizes." Those few months stretched into almost 2 years. During that time, I covered the full mortgage on their old house in Lakewood, paid for the roof repair, and even the down payment on my dad's new car because the old one kept dying. Danielle wanted to pursue a master's in educational counseling. My mom called again, this time gentler. "She can't pass up this opportunity just because of money. It's 5,000 per semester. Don't you think sisters should support each other?" I agreed. 3 semesters, 15,000 total. Danielle never brought it up again. Not even to say thank you, let alone to pay it back. Then came Lucas. I don't know how he's always about to succeed. Every 3 months, there's a new breakthrough idea that urgently needs funding, and I'm the first and only person they think of. The first project was a custom athletic wear business. I wired 12,000 so Lucas could buy a heat press machine and rent a small studio in Arvada. 3 months later, I got news. The lease was terminated for missed payments. The machine had been pawned to pay the electric bill. Next came an app to connect pet lovers. I declined. My mom immediately called in tears. "Lucas has changed. He's working day and night on this. How could you crush your brother's spirit like that?" I transferred $9,500. I'm not sure what hurt more, losing the money or losing my belief that I was doing the right thing. And Danielle's wedding, a grand fall ceremony at a resort in Estes Park surrounded by crimson maple trees with a live band, vintage car, and a 3-course French dinner. I was the maid of honor and the main sponsor. Total cost, over $26,000, not including the custom bridesmaid dress I had to pay for and the Vegas trip for her bachelorette party. When I refused to buy a flight ticket for one of her friends, Danielle pulled me aside and said, "You don't get friendship. Everyone thinks you're cold and no fun." I smiled faintly, maybe because I was the only one juggling a business barely surviving its first post-COVID year while also bankrolling the wedding of someone who didn't even remember my birthday. I began to realize I wasn't just being overlooked. I was being excluded from anything remotely emotional. That Thanksgiving, I found out the whole family had gone to New Orleans. Danielle posted pictures of seafood boils on a hotel balcony. Lucas uploaded selfies from the French Quarter. I wasn't invited. When I texted to ask, my mom replied, "You're always so busy, I figured you didn't care for this kind of thing." I read that message over and over. Then I looked at my bank statement. 2 days before, there had been a charge of $7,800 on a credit card I co-signed. I called the bank. It was the hotel reservation at Bourbon and Ivy. Paid with my card, where my mom was the authorized user. No one asked, no one checked if I was okay or even present. They just needed me to fund it and disappear. There was a moment later that night, sitting alone in my stone-tiled kitchen, opening a bottle of Merlot I had been saving for something special, when I wondered, if I vanished from this world, would anyone in my family notice? And then I realized maybe they would, but only because they wouldn't know who would cover next month's bill. Last February, when Boulder was still blanketed in winter snow, my mother called me on a Monday morning. Her voice sounded different. Sweeter than usual, soft like she was folding buttercream into every word. "Valerie, your father and I are about to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. I want to do something truly special. Don't you think our family deserves a proper party?" I hesitated. 40 years is a long time, and despite everything, the daughter in me still held on to some hope of reconciling, even just a little. "What do you mean? Like where?" "Lakeview Estate. You know, that new resort up in the southern mountains near Boulder. They have private banquet rooms overlooking the lake, decorated in rustic elegance. Just your dad's style. I already spoke to the manager. They need a deposit of $18,000 to hold the date. I almost choked. Mom, that's not a small amount. I know, she said, her tone dipping a bit. But you're the only one who can afford it. Lucas and Danielle are both struggling, and Madeline, I don't ask you for much. I had already paid off their mortgage for nearly 2 years. I had funded my sister's wedding. I had bailed out every one of Lucas's failed ventures, but in my mother's memory, all of that seemed to register as just what daughters do. I looked at my computer screen, then replied calmly, "Have the manager contact me directly. I'll handle the deposit." 3 days later, an email from Lakeview Estate landed in my inbox. They confirmed I was listed as the primary payer for the event on April 19th. I transferred the funds that same day. $18,000 without negotiating, without attaching a single condition. I texted our family group chat. "I've made the deposit for Lakeview. Let me know if there's anything else I can help with." Danielle replied with a clapping emoji. Lucas said nothing. My mom messaged thanks. Now I can focus on planning everything. I thought maybe, just maybe, this time I'd get to be involved in the planning, even in some small way. 2 weeks later, I asked her, "Do you need help with the guest list or the menu?" "Oh, no need. You just focus on work. I know you're busy." I asked again, "Do we have the guest list yet? I'd like to dress appropriately." "I'll send it soon, but it's probably around 50 to 60 people, all family and close friends." But the list never came. Every time I brought it up, they either dodged the question or changed the subject. Danielle said, "Maybe Mom wants it to be a surprise for everyone. Don't worry." The week before the event, I called Mom one more time. "What should I wear? Should I come early to help with anything?" She chuckled lightly over the phone. "Wear whatever you want, just nothing too flashy. Anyway, I'm swamped. I'll call you later." Something felt off. That tone of everything's fine sent a chill down my spine. But I tried to reassure myself. I'm the one paying. There's no way they'd exclude me. I spent that Friday afternoon shopping for a gift, a pair of classic Raymond Vi watches, limited edition, genuine leather straps with custom engraved dials bearing each of their names. The total came to $5,200, not including the engraving fee or the custom walnut gift box. That evening, I sat in my living room wrapping the gift. Under the warm yellow light, the silver ribbon was tied neatly. I added a small card. "Happy 40 years together, Madeline." I truly believed that at least this time they would see me, not as a walking wallet, but as their daughter. April 19th in Boulder was so beautiful, it felt like a mockery. The sky was crystal clear, not a single cloud in sight, and soft sunlight filtered through blooming white plum blossoms. I arrived at Lakeview Estate at 4:30 p.m., a full 30 minutes early, according to the official invitation I never actually received. But I had paid the deposit. I was the sponsor of this event. My presence, at least in my mind, was unquestionable. I parked my Lexus neatly in the VIP lot. Stepping out, I held a silver-wrapped gift box, the navy blue ribbon gleaming under the sun. I wore a navy sheathed dress, elegant, understated, crystal-studded heels, hair in a low bun, makeup done lightly. It had taken me 2 hours to get ready, all for one simple hope: to be seen as part of this family, just once. Lakeview was exactly as Mom had described it. Mirror-still lake, string lights cascading down stone walkways. I approached the check-in desk, smiling at a staff member in a black blazer holding a guest list clipboard. "Hi, I'm Madeline Hart. I'm here for the anniversary party of Mr. and Mrs. Charles and Susan Hart." She glanced down, quickly typed on her tablet, then her face froze. "I'm sorry, could you repeat your name?" I frowned slightly, but kept my voice even. "Madeline Hart. Their daughter?" A pause. The young woman straightened awkwardly. I'm very sorry, but your name isn't on the guest list. There may have been a mistake. My body went cold. I paid the deposit for this event. I still have the confirmation email from your management. She looked flustered and quickly called for the event manager. While waiting, I peered through the tall glass doors leading into the main hall. Inside, golden lights glowed. I saw Danielle laughing near the wine table in a burgundy dress. Lucas stood by a group of friends, whiskey glass in hand. Everyone was relaxed, laughing, enjoying. I didn't see Mom. I didn't see Dad. Then the manager arrived, a tall, blonde woman in a beige suit with a name tag. Megan, event director. Mrs. Hart, I understand there's been some confusion. You are indeed the one who paid the deposit. However, per the final guest list approved by the family, you were not included. It felt like the air had been pulled from my lungs. I'm a daughter who paid $18,000 for this party. How am I not invited? Megan looked sympathetic. I'm not in a position to override the list. If you'd like, I can ask your family to speak with you. I nodded, gripping the gift box so tightly the silver paper crumpled. 5 minutes later, the doors opened. My father stepped out first, in a charcoal tuxedo with a sharp black bow tie. Mom followed behind, radiant in a silver gown. But there wasn't an ounce of warmth on their faces when they saw me. Madeline, Dad said without a smile. What are you doing here? I choked back disbelief. Are you really asking me that? Mom folded her arms, face stiff. We didn't think you'd come. You're always so busy. I raised the gift box, my hands still trembling. My mother's voice added, I brought a present. I came to celebrate, and because I paid for this. Dad glanced around, then lowered his voice, icy and firm. This is a private event. Not everyone belongs here. You should understand that. My mouth hung open, stunned. Mom turned away without meeting my eyes, her silence louder than any insult. Dad gestured to the security staff behind him. Please escort her off the premises. We don't want a scene. I whispered. Are you serious right now? He stepped closer, voice like steel. What's unclear? We don't have room here for someone who shows up to mooch off others. Get this leech out of here. A leech. I couldn't tell what hurt more. That word, or the way my mother stood behind him, arms crossed, saying nothing, as if I were some stain on their perfect evening. The security guard gently touched my elbow, polite but firm. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I didn't cry. Not right then. I just turned and walked, step by step, past rows of lavender, gift box still in hand, heart hollow. As the car door shut behind me, I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see the people who used to call themselves my family. I don't remember how I drove home that night. Everything felt like it was shrouded in fog, like watching a blurry film through rain-streaked glass, with the sound of wind howling past the car windows. The gift box was still on the passenger seat, its silver tissue wrinkled, smeared with mascara, because I had broken down the moment I left the Lakeview gates. When I got back to my apartment, the kitchen light was still on. I took off my shoes, dropped my purse on the floor, and collapsed at the foot of the stairs, as if my legs had forgotten how to hold me up. I had once hoped, once tried, once given them one more chance, and all I got in return were my mother's evasive eyes, my father's icy words, and a silent shove out of the very family I'd given everything to. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. It was Quinn, my best friend from college, the one person I could call in moments like this. I didn't have to explain anything over the phone. I only said, I need you to come. And she came. Quinn took one look at me. Mascara still smeared, dress wrinkled, face pale like sleep had long abandoned it. She said nothing, just stepped in and hugged me tight. Talk to me, Madeline. And I did. I told her everything, every word, every look, every second of being thrown out of a party I paid for. When I got to the part where my dad called me a leech, Quinn's voice turned to steel. No, this isn't favoritism anymore. This is abuse. It's humiliation. I nodded, though I still felt hollow inside. Do you still have all the transaction records? Quinn asked. I looked up and nodded. Of course. I work in finance. I save everything. I opened my laptop and logged into my personal expense tracker. I had a folder named Family Support, which sounded far too gentle, considering the truth. I pulled up the report sorted by year, by recipient. The total appeared, $312,860.52. Quinn gave a low whistle. Madeline, that's 3 full college tuitions, that's a house, that's someone's entire future. I stared at the rows of data, Lucas's car payments, Danielle's tuition, roof repairs, that New Orleans trip I was never invited to, then the $18,000 for the anniversary party, $5,200 for the luxury watch set still untouched in its box, even the little expenses, string quartet for a wedding, flower arrangements, airfare for my sister's best friend whom I'd never met. Quinn was silent for a while, then said, I think it's time to stop. I didn't have time to respond before my phone buzzed. A bank notification, $3,650. Luxury transportation service, charged to my card. Right then, the day after the party, I opened my banking app. It wasn't the only one. Another $2,800 for extra catering, $1,200 for a premium wine package, and $450 for a mobile photo booth. They were still using my card. After throwing me out of the party, they kept spending my money like nothing had happened. My hands gripped the edge of the chair, trembling. Quinn quietly placed a hand on my shoulder. What are you going to do now? I took a deep breath. I'm canceling everything. That night, I stayed up until almost 3 a.m. I changed all my banking passwords, removed my parents and Lucas from every authorized user access. I emailed the bank to flag every suspicious charge and freeze all shared cards. Then I compiled a detailed report, a list of every expense, who it went to, when, and why. I attached receipts, emails, and bank statements. I didn't know yet what I would do with it, but I needed it as proof to myself that I wasn't crazy, that everything I remembered, everything I felt, was real. Finally, I drafted an email and sent it to all 3 of them. Starting today, I will no longer provide any financial support in any form. All credit cards, secondary accounts, and unused lines of credit have been canceled. Any future charges will be considered fraudulent activity. I am no longer this family's ATM. I hit send. The first feeling wasn't relief, it was emptiness. But then something strange happened. I could breathe. For the first time in years, I took a full, deep breath and didn't feel like I was choking. The next morning, before I could finish my first sip of coffee, the phone started ringing, non-stop. Mom called. Danielle called. Lucas left 3 missed calls and 2 all-caps texts. I set my coffee down, ignoring the blaring phone like a fire alarm. I knew the storm had come. Exactly as I expected. Less than an hour later, the doorbell rang, loud and urgent. Through the hallway glass, I saw my mom standing there, face flushed, clutching her handbag like she'd just come from battle. Behind her was my dad, rigid as a statue, and Danielle, arms crossed, eyes wide, as if she were the one who'd been betrayed. I opened the door. Madeline, what is this about? My mom demanded, skipping greetings, skipping everything. I stepped aside, letting them in. My dad didn't wait for an invite. He walked straight into the living room like it was his own. Danielle trailed behind, dragging the cold tension that always followed her. You canceled everything? Disneyland, Jack's tuition, even Mom's joint account is frozen. That's right, I said calmly. And that's just the beginning. I walked over to the dining table, where I had already laid out a stack of printed papers, the spreadsheet I worked on last night. Each page was numbered, clearly listing recipient date, amount, purpose, and status. The last column was hand-labeled notes, with annotations like not repaid, unauthorized, no notice, used without consent. I slid the papers toward them. This is every dollar I've spent in the past 11 years. Total $312,000 $860.52. That's not counting interest or opportunity cost. My dad picked up a page, raising an eyebrow. What's the point of this? To remind everyone I'm not an endless ATM. My mom winced. You're making a big deal out of this. This is family, Madeline. In families, we support each other. The port, I raised an eyebrow. Then name one time in the past 10 years when anyone supported me, asked if I was okay, or was it only ever about when the money was coming? Danielle jumped in, her voice sharp. You've always loved to control everything. Isn't that what this is? You like having power and now you're turning it around? I met her gaze. I didn't control, I rescued. You couldn't afford your wedding. I paid. You wanted a master's degree, I funded it. I never asked for repayment, never demanded thanks. And what did I get? A silent shove out of a family celebration. My dad slammed a page down. Stop playing the victim. You knew what you were doing. If you didn't want to help, don't give money. Now you're coming back to throw it in our faces? I took a breath, speaking slowly. I said nothing for 10 years. I was patient, silent, hoping that if I kept giving, one day I'd be seen. But no, what I got was systemic exploitation. That's not love, that's financial abuse. The room fell silent. My mom froze. Danielle stared wide-eyed. My dad scoffed, but I caught a flicker of alarm in his eyes. Starting today, I continued, there will be no more joint cards, no more loans, no bill payments. I will no longer cover any expenses, medical, educational, or otherwise. Any future requests involving money will be denied. Danielle sprang up. You're cutting us off? Who do you think you are? I'm the last person in this family who still understands what boundaries mean. My dad stood, his face crimson. Selfish. This family raised you, and now you just walk away? I looked him in the eye, no longer afraid. Family doesn't crush someone just because they make more money. Family doesn't call their daughter a leech and then spend her money behind her back. If this is the price of growing up, Hart, then I've already paid in full. I opened the door. You can go now. I don't need explanations, and I don't owe anyone a damn thing anymore. My dad paused at the door, turned to look at me one last time. You'll regret this. I didn't reply. I simply smiled and shut the door. For the first time, I heard the soft, solid click of the lock. I thought I would feel instant relief after that confrontation, but I didn't. The emotions came slowly, like when the body recovers from a fever. Chills, emptiness, and then, finally, calm. 3 days later, I cleared out the filing cabinet in my home office. Every printed bill, every receipt, every sub-account, I put them all into a large box labeled closed. I didn't burn them, didn't shred them. I kept them not out of hate, but to remind myself that there was once a version of Madeline who believed family love could be bought with sacrifice. The following weekend, I received a strange letter. Not an email, but a handwritten note, sent through the mail, cream-colored envelope, neat handwriting. In the top left corner, Margaret Albright, attorney at law. I frowned slightly. That law office was in Loveland, about an hour's drive from Boulder. I had never heard of it. When I opened the letter, I saw a folded sheet of paper and a bank statement. At the top was a line, "The final wishes of your grandmother, Mrs. Evelyn Monroe. Please find enclosed the separate inheritance that has been held in a trust account for the past 6 years." I collapsed into my chair. Grandma Evelyn, my mother's mother, the only woman in the family I ever felt safe around. She passed away when I was 34, during a colder than usual winter. I remember clearly, at the funeral, my mother told me not to give a eulogy because people will find it odd if you speak. My hands trembled as I opened the statement. The account held over $187,000, plus 6 years' worth of accrued interest. Attached was a handwritten letter from her, The paper yellowed with time. My dearest Madeline, I know you won't receive the love you deserve in this family. I've seen it for a long time, though I never dare to say it aloud for fear of causing division. To set aside a small fund kept in Attorney Margaret's care, with one condition. It would only be released when you had the courage to live true to your values. I believe that moment will come, and if you're reading this letter, it means you've already overcome the hardest part, standing up on your own. I held my breath the entire time reading, tears silently falling onto the edge of the paper. Holding that money in my hands, I didn't think about traveling or shopping. The first thing I did was establish a scholarship fund in her name, the Evelyn Foundation for Independent Youth. It supports young people rejected by their families, especially those who've been financially manipulated or denied education due to internal family reasons. I hired a team of lawyers and financial advisors to help structure the program. I wanted people like me, people once seen as the one who has, so must give, to know they still deserved a new chance. At the same time, I expanded my circle. Quinn had always been there, but now I welcomed others too. My former assistant, Jessica, a single mom juggling school and work, Henry, a chef who left home at 16 due to discrimination, and even a distant cousin named Rachel, who once quietly messaged me after the Lakeview incident saying, "I saw everything, and I support you." I invited them to dinner at my apartment each month. No one asked for money, no one complained, no one said, "Why won't you help me with this or that?" Just laughter, stories, and Henry's barbecue always gone first. That Christmas, I didn't receive a message from my parents or from Lucas or Danielle. I didn't send any either. I hung a wreath on my door, baked gingerbread cookies, and hand-wrote 12 cards for the people I invited to dinner. Not out of obligation, but because I was truly grateful for them. There's one thing I've realized. Sometimes you don't need to forgive the ones who hurt you in order to live well. You just need to stop, turn the other way, and rebuild your home with bricks you've chosen yourself. I am no longer the daughter of the Hart family. I am Madeline Hart, the woman who chose herself. And this time, I don't need anyone's permission to exist fully in my own life. Madeline's story is a powerful reminder that family bonds should never be built on unconditional sacrifice or silent endurance. In real life, many people remain trapped in toxic family relationships where love is traded for money and responsibility is twisted into a lifelong burden. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's the first step toward protecting one's self-worth. Sometimes, real family isn't where you're born, it's who respects you for who you truly are. What do you think about Madeline's decision? Would you have chosen differently in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more stories about family, boundaries, and freedom.